No, I just don't understand aggregate supply and demand. I guess that supply slopes up and demand slopes down, but there are so many factors that can change each. How am I ever going to memorize all these determinants and understand equilibrium, quantity, and price?
Don't worry, this is easy. I'm going to teach you everything that you need to know about aggregate supply and demand. From determinants to equilibrium, the whole 9 yards.
Who are you, son?
I'm Anthony, a macroeconomics scholar, but that's not important. Give me a few minutes and you'll be as smart as me regarding aggregate supply and demand.
Oh boy, wonderful.
Let's sit down and start. So the first thing you need to understand about this concept is the thought of market aggregates. The aggregate demand is the total demand for all goods in the market, from hats to shoes to cars. Just remember that the aggregate demand has to do with GDP. GDP is made of government spending, consumer spending, investment spending, and net exports. Exports minus imports. Like a regular demand curve, the aggregate demand slopes downwards because consumers and any buyer want to purchase a good for the lowest price possible. The aggregate supply curve, similarly, is the total supply of goods and services in a market. Just like the regular supply curve, the aggregate supply curve is upwards. Sellers or suppliers wish to sell goods for the highest price possible, meaning that they would be less willing to sell a large number of goods for a cheap price.
Nice, that is so interesting.
Okay, let's focus on aggregate demand now. Aggregate demand is shifted by 5 determinants. Just think WES FM. W, wealth. E, expectation. S, size of current physical capital. F, fiscal policy. And M, monetary policy. Regarding wealth, just remember that the wealthier people are, the more they will spend, so demand shifts right. Expectation, if people are more optimistic about the economy and about life, then they will shop and buy more, so the demand shifts right. Size of physical capital is probably the trickiest. So companies and businesses have physical capital, the machines and tools that they use to make products. If these machines are breaking down, then the companies will need to buy more to replace them. So if the stock of physical capital is small, the demand will shift to the right because these companies are buying more machines. Fiscal policy is simple. The government can either do one of 3 things: change taxes, change government spending, and change the amount of money that it gives to people through programs. So, lowering taxes, increasing government spending, and increasing the government transfer of money to the people all shift the aggregate demand to the right, while doing the opposite will shift the aggregate demand to the left. Monetary policy is conducted by the Federal Reserve, and they can do 3 things: change the reserve requirement, the percentage of reserves that banks cannot give out, the discount window rate, the interest rate of loans that the Federal Reserve can give out to other banks, and buying or selling of bonds or treasury bills. So lowering the reserve requirement, lowering the discount window rate, and buying treasury bills will all shift the aggregate demand to the right, while doing the opposite will shift the curve to the left.
Okay, so WES FM, sweet.
Now let's go to aggregate supply. The determinants for supply are IPI. I, price of inputs, P, productivity, and I, inflation. With inputs, you have 2 major parts: commodity prices and wages. If either of these go up, then the aggregate supply will shift to the left. For productivity, if workers and companies become more productive or efficient in manufacturing, then the aggregate supply will shift to the right. Lastly, for inflation, if inflation is expected to be lower in the future, the aggregate supply will shift to the right because the companies will want to take advantage of the higher prices.
Wow, that is not too complicated, now that I'm thinking about it.
Absolutely. Now I'm going to teach you about the actual graph. As you can see, on the y-axis is the aggregate price level of all goods in the market. On the x-axis is the real GDP of the market. This point here where the supply and demand curves intersect is called the equilibrium. At equilibrium, the supply and demand are equal to each other, giving you the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity.
Anthony, but what happens if the price moves from the equilibrium or the supply and the demand change?
That's a good question. So, if the price goes above equilibrium for some reason or another, we'll have a surplus of the good, which means that we will have more goods available than people want to buy. This happens because the price is so high that suppliers can make a lot of money, making them produce more goods, but the consumers do not want to spend and buy the goods because of the price. If the price goes below the equilibrium point, then you'll have a shortage because buyers will want to buy so much of that good due to its low price.
But what happens when the supply and demand shift?
When that happens, the equilibrium will change to whatever the next point of intersection is between the 2 curves. This, in consequence, will change the equilibrium price and the equilibrium quantity. Just remember the acronyms for both aggregate supply and aggregate demand, and you'll be absolutely fine.
Thank you so much. I'm definitely going to get a 5 on this exam now.
Oh, one last thing. Let me tell you about long-run equilibrium.
Long run equilibrium? That sounds difficult.
It isn't. Trust me. So everything that I've taught you about has been in the short run, current occurrences, or in the near future. In fact, there's a reason why the aggregate supply is labeled SRAS, since it is the short-run aggregate supply. This is the long-run aggregate supply, which is the potential output for a market over a long period of time. In fact, the equilibrium quantity here is called the potential output, because that is the output of the economy at the highest production. In the short run, the economy can produce at higher levels than potential output, but it will revert back somehow or another unless technology or production capabilities are improved. The intersection between these three curves is called the long-run macroeconomic equilibrium, and at this point, the market is in perfect balance.
Nice. I definitely understand this topic more. It seems so clear now.